Hello, people of the world. Here we are in another episode of the We Make Democracy podcast, and today we'll host Klemen Balanč, a political activist and a project manager at the youth network MAMA. Hello, Klemen.
Hello, Ivona.
How are you?
I'm very fine. I was looking forward to having this podcast with you, so the energy is high. So all good.
Yeah, you told me that a couple of times, but I'm always nervous at the very beginning. So let's jump into the questions. I would like for the starter to ask you how you actually found yourself in this world of activism and non-formal education.
Well, I think my story is pretty regular one for Slovenia. I started bartending in my local youth center at 17 years old. And from there, I started getting involved in their projects, doing projects for youngsters, doing cultural events, concerts, sporting events. And that continued for, I think, 6 years that I've been a volunteer in the youth center.
Okay. But how did you end in this particular youth network, MAMA? So how long have you been their member?
The youth center that I volunteered at is a member of the network MAMA, where I'm currently employed as project manager. We're a network of Slovenian youth centers, 53 youth centers. And what we do is we do some advocacy for them, also fundraising. We do innovation in the field of youth work, and we also do a lot of trainings for local youth workers.
Okay, so that's how Mama takes care of her youngsters?
Yes.
Okay.
And I came to Mreža Mama when I was finishing my studies in political science. A group of friends from faculty, we established our first company. Then it was called Institute for Political Management, and I was active there for 6 years. It became a consortium or like a holding of nine business entities. And then 2 years ago, I sold my share in the company, decided to take some time off in life. And then one of the project managers at Network Mama resigned. So we were doing 2 projects with Mreža Mama together before. I was an expert on the project. So we knew each other for a couple of years, and I got offered the job, and it was nice. I took the opportunity to come back to the youth center and work with young people again.
Nice, but can you tell us more about your activities, or maybe to tell us or describe like the main projects that you have that are going on?
We have each year we have more than 10 projects.
Okay.
But we don't only do projects. We try to take care of the interests of the youth centers and the youth workers on a more corporate level. We're a national NGO, so we do partake in certain governmental activities, being in their advisory bodies, and try to advocate for the interest of youth and youth centers there. But mostly, a lot of our activities are European Union funded projects. Most of them aimed at youth centers carrying out activities for social inclusion of youngsters, especially those with fewer opportunities, doing social activation, building their competences, basically developing youth work on a local level.
So do you focus more on the local then, or you still have like national and international projects and agendas?
Well, you put it very nicely. Youth centers are the ones who are taking care of youth work on the local level. So, Of course, we try to create opportunities for them, get some funds so they can do projects. So also do trainings for the local youth workers so they build their competences. On the national level, we're also active in the field of youth dialogue, but more also this advocacy and a bit of research. And each year we are members or main coordinators of European projects mostly Erasmus Plus, mostly strategic partnerships aimed at creating some innovative inputs that can be used then to improve the quality of youth work.
Okay, and if I understood well, one of the, let's say, most prominent features or methods that you use, like the organization, the network MAMA, is youth dialogue mechanism. Can you tell us more about it?
Youth dialogue mechanism is basically we bring together young people and decision makers on local level, so it could be mayor or municipality council members, or on the national level like ministry experts or parliamentary members, and also we have a very, I guess, specific situation talking to colleagues around Europe. We have members of the European Parliament in Slovenia that are very fond of meeting young people. So it's a method of non-formal education that kind of grew out of the academic research that showed a correlation between skills, verbal skills, and political knowledge that young people get in formal education that correlates with the level of their political participation later in life. And because our formal education does not equip youngsters with such knowledge and verbal skills, it's a task of non-formal education to kind of build those competencies. So like lack of knowledge and skills is the first barrier to political participation of youth. And the second barrier is this perceived divide between young people and politicians. Young people see politicians like as some detached persons. They only see them on television, maybe, and it's sometimes hard to them for them to imagine politicians being just like normal human beings that you can actually talk to like normally.
Yeah.
If you approach them like without like any aggression and just like a normal human being, and that's what we're trying to do. So
but what do they talk about then? Do they like learn what their rights are, or do they maybe even suggest certain projects to the decision makers?
It depends. Like when youth centers carry out youth dialogue projects, then they give the opportunity to youngsters to meet with the mayor and kind of express their opinions about like what's good in the municipality, what's bad in the municipality for young people, and give suggestions like what kind of projects or what kind of like infrastructure maybe they want to have.
They need to have, okay.
Maybe the most prominent version of the youth dialogue is the European Youth Dialogue, where these people talk to European decision makers and local decision makers. They create these proposals that are collected from the local level, are collected nationally, and then all 27 national reports from all the members of the European Union get sent to Brussels, and they go through all the proposals, the voices of the young people, and based on what young people expressed about their wishes for the future of Europe or for their country, they try to kind of put that into policy and base like financial programs and activities that are funded according to the needs and the wishes of the young people.
Okay, and has coronavirus then affected your work, because you do deal with the youth centers where a lot of people would gather? You have also these dialogues. So what methods maybe did you have to implement in the chaotic times?
It did. What I saw in the sector is that a lot of youth workers and also like managers of the youth sectors were a bit reluctant to use digital technologies to carry out youth work. And like this, the pandemic, the lockdowns kind of forced them to reimagine youth work using digital technologies. So it has become somewhat of a trend. I mean, it was even before, but the process was much accelerated by the pandemic to go towards digital youth work and hybrid youth work. So for example, for the youth dialogues, we did around 20 events last year in 2020, where young people and politicians meet on Zoom and talked on Zoom. And it made also these youth dialogues, it made it more accessible to young people. And also it's easier to get a politician to take 2 hours from their busy schedule to join young people on Zoom instead of traveling like 1 hour somewhere, or for the members of the European Parliament to come from Brussels to Slovenia. So we don't have to wait for them to be in Slovenia to do these dialogues, but they can do it from Brussels, and it has proven to be quite a good practice. Actually, one of the best from all the activities and different methods of non-formal education. The youth dialogue has been proven to be to gain most of these kind of being put in from the physical spaces to the digital space.
Virtual one, yeah. Okay, but I also have to ask you, from your own experience, of course, does the government show any interest in supporting you, in concrete the youth network Mama, and how? Because you are a big network and you cover
Yes.
a lot of youth centers and youth workers.
I would say in Slovenia, in general, the structural support for youth sector is quite high, like financially, organizationally, with this established practice of the social dialogue between. We have a saying in Slovenia: nothing about young people without the young people. So yeah, I would say Slovenia is a very youth-friendly country, also friendly towards the youth sector. We are quite a strong social partner. Our voices are heard. Our interests are being taken into consideration. And yeah, we also we have a law in Slovenia, a law on the public interest in the youth sector. So it's a law that kind of sets certain standards for organizations to achieve, so they get the status of being an organization in the public interest. And once you get that status, you get a bit privileged for privilege to get like some public money, some public funding for the project.
Yeah, and do you collaborate in any way with maybe schools? Because you said that formal education, it really does lack a lot of very important things. So do you have any projects that you share in a way or realize them together?
Yeah, there are a lot of youth centers collaborate with local high schools, also local elementary schools. Schools sometimes send students to the youth centers or youth workers from the youth centers go to school to promote the youth center or to do some workshops. So yeah, it's a very good practice. So also kind of the schools are interested in hosting the youth workers and their workshops as part of like compulsory extracurricular activities. The problem in Slovenia that we've been addressing for a couple of years now is that in high schools we don't have a subject called civic education. So there's not like it really depends on the teachers on like certain like in different subjects to give some this political knowledge or to create, I don't know, opportunities to develop verbal skills by organizing pro and contra debates, let's say. So schools are fond of hosting youth workers, so the youth workers kind of take care of this maybe like development of soft skills and competencies and this kind of political literacy.
Yes, so in that sense, non-formal education is obviously very, very important.
It is important. It's one of the basic mechanisms, especially when we talk about youth work. It's one of the most important mechanisms for social inclusion of young people, especially the ones with fewer opportunities, for building competences, entrepreneurial mindsets, fostering active citizenship attitudes. and just basically also offer psychological support to young people in mental distress. So the youth centers and youth work that's being done there is like one of the most important support mechanisms for young people to develop their potentials in a way they cannot maybe do in these formal settings in schools.
Nice. And I just wanted to ask you, what has your activist engagement brought to you?
Well, it's fun. I'm a political scientist, so it's kind of something very that I'm very fond of. But I've been doing this political social activism now for more than 12 years, and it's been a lot of fun. I also grew a lot as a person. Also, my professional skills, competencies with being volunteer in like different projects and actions and protests as well, and advocacy campaigns and lobbying for laws. So also as a political scientist, I think this is very important to becoming a good political scientist, is that you have a lot of practice from the field that the universities or the schools do not offer. So I would say for any political scientists out there that they also, reading books is important, understanding the subject matter is important, but it's also important to understand what you've read, to test it also in the field.
Yeah, and to be exposed and to interact with people and then really get the whole picture.
And also sometimes I would maybe add that sometimes I felt like this social activism or political activism gives like an extra layer of meaning to my life and how I perceive the world.
In a way that you feel like you're doing something useful, that you're a responsible citizen.
Yeah, and an active member of community. I mean, it's something that we have maybe forgotten in the modern age, but the classics, like from the ancient Greeks, knew that you cannot be happy as an individual in an unhappy society or an unhappy community. So if you care about your happiness, of course you need to first take care of yourself, but then also take care of your community. So the community is, there's happy people there, and you can share your happiness with others and they share it with you.
Definitely.
And it makes a world a better place, even though that world is like a small local community where you live.
Klemen, just for the end, if you have any other message for the youngsters out there?
I would say believe in yourself and stay persistent in what you're doing. Strive for small changes on the long term. Instead of trying to achieve too much too soon. And if you are consistent and doing small changes, it's a process, but in a long term that can have a really big impact on the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And that would be it. Bye-bye.